Hello everybody, welcome to the new video. This time we are playing a really fun deck. I'm really excited for this brew, this list, and this deck is really doing having plan A, plan B, and C probably in the main. So we are playing few little combos, let's say. So we are basically partially Reanimator deck. We're playing 4 persist, trying to go bitter reunion, turn to discard the agent or the fury, or maybe go fable or seasoned pyromancer. Um, to discard our agent of treachery mostly, and then try to persist it turn 3, 4, or after. And but it's not just that. We are also playing. This is Enigmatic Incarnation deck, which has a little combo of sacrificing the Leyline Binding and with the incarnation finding the agent of treasury. So basically you can go turn 2 or 3 leyline binding into some creature, then turn 4 sacrifice the binding, find the agent, and steal that creature you had below binding or something better, or whatever you need more. So uh, we have uh, we have a few ways to get our agent on the field, and the third way of getting it, and the plan C for the deck. It's definitely this deck is basically just a good stuff pile, 5 color Omnat pile. We're playing some typical stuff people play in Omnat piles all the time. We're playing Ren 6, Fables, some pitch elementals, 3 solitudes, 2 furies, leyline bindings. So all the stuff you typically find there, and enigmatic incarnation just uh, doesn't have any drawbacks here. We are not forced to play any bad enchantment that lowers the overall power level of the deck. So all everything is just uh, very good stuff cards like a Fable of the Mirror Breaker. This Bitter Union is also uh, decent card draw, but that sacrifices on the enigmatic. Puts our agent into the graveyard, but also it has the ability to sacrifice itself to give creatures haste until end of turn, which works very well with the Fable. The turn it flips, we are able to give it haste, and then copy our Solitude, Fury, Seasoned Pyromancer, Agent of Treachery, whatever we need, and it works really well in practice. Okay, so we also playing Omnat as a some kind of win condition, but also a way to cast the Agent of the Treachery early as turn 5. Okay, so that's it. We're playing on sideboard some artifact in Verteres, Knight of Photons, which are fetchable with an enigmatic incarnation. Playing also 2 Bosages. We also playing Vren, so Bosages are also very nice. A lot of ways here to destroy the artifacts, destroy the lands. Use also Spreading Seas as additional land hate. Then use 2 temporary lockdowns on the sideboard, which work really well in this deck. You're able to exile a huge amount of cheap early threats, like it's very relevant against Hammer Time, Scales, that kind of decks, Affinities. It's also good against Murktide decks, exiling Ledger Shredders, Ragavans, DRCs. On the draw, it can be very good. So that's basically the deck, and we will go through the league and watch some of the games. Last league I played, I finished 4-1, lost, but played 4 games in a row against Murktide decks. So we'll go through those games, just see how dominant what this deck really was in those Murktide matchups, and but you definitely in a lot of cases have to be prepared to take a hit from Ragavan, but those hits in most cases don't matter too much when playing this deck. We have very strong mid late game, probably one of the strongest in the game. This deck is perfectly able to outgrind and outgrind the uh, other Omnat piles controls mid-range decks. So if you're playing Agent of Treachery, it's really good in those mirrors. You're mostly able to hardcast it also, and it becomes a very good top deck, stealing your opponent's powerful permanents. Okay, in this position, I decide it's best to just sack the Leyline Binding, steal opponent's Merc Time, let their Leisure Shredder back. Okay, so next turn I just go my Fable, get a token, attack for 6, then put Omnat on the field, and my opponent concedes. That's it. A very quick and easy game, 1 against Murktide. So game 2 in match 1 I keep an awkward land hand, but I immediately draw the land I'm missing. So I'm able to don't have access to basic yet, but I have few draws to get it, and I'm able to play all my spells at turn 3, also hold Lilan Binding turn 2, so it's a decent hand. I decided to go for the Endurance. Next turn, oh, my opponent just goes for Iteration this turn, and I'm able to cast my Endurance this turn, find a fetch, which will prove as very necessary finding. I was able to find the white fetch to get my basic and Leyland Binding the moon next turn. I had a few draws for it, and it was just all I needed at that point. I had a decent clock also, endurance on the field, and I'm not nearly close to getting the delirium. They go for the fetch, and I decided to go second endurance at that point. So my opponent is on 9 life. I'm also holding the Leyland Binding if necessary. So I have few removals for the Shredder. I hoped they will try to counter this one, but they didn't, which was also fine. I just went for the attack, played the Fable, they countered the Fable, and they find the Delirium, kill one of the Endurances, and play the Murktide, so I was forced just to watch after my opponent countered the Teferi, we were in a stalemate situation. I was in a definitely much better situation because every brand top deck just kills my opponent. Uh, just need a removal to finish the game. I decided first to go for the draw discard. I find the land and play the Leyland Binding, and that was it. I had the lethal, and that was match 1. Okay, so we'll now watch match 2 again against a Murktide opponent, a slightly different version because my opponent played Play the Force of Negation in the main. In his version, I keep sketchy hands, no lands, but I decided to risk it, and I did find the second land on turn 2. I go for the Ren to kill the Channeler, which is kind of perfect at this point, but my opponent has Force. Unfortunately, of course, so I had another Ren in hand, but my opponent succeeds to counter that one too. Okay, so I had the Fable for the next turn plus the Solitude. I decided to keep the Solitude to see if they'll be able to find the Delirium. When they do, I just go kill it because it would be too much pressure on my life total. And I was in a good situation because my opponent didn't find the land, and I was able to cast my Fable, save the Enigmatic maybe for next turn or other Fable. But I didn't. I discarded the Omnat. I probably should have discarded the Fable or the Enigmatic. I should have kept the Omnat and probably play it right away or save for next turn. It was my way to. It would be my way to survive, gain some life, and just completely erase the the pressure on life total by this Murktide. But my opponent had too much removal anyway, had another heat, and that was game 1. So against Murktide, I'm bringing in a lot of stuff. I bring in one or two temporary lockdowns depending if I'm on play or on draw. I'm siding out three Omnats, one Misty Rainforest, bringing in Bosages, Teferis, uh, Endurances, all of them. So I could really have a lot of cards in this matchup. I also sided out one Pyromancer, one Ren, one Fury, and three Omnats. And I also bring, I think I bring in second temporary lockdown on the draw. And that's it. So my opponent played the moon. I didn't have the solution for the moon at the point, but I had the three fables in the hand, which is very likely to get me the green mana I need, and also maybe loot me towards finding Boseiju or the basic. I immediately find the Boseiju. Get the treasure token. So I destroy the moon immediately, then go for the run and ping the Shredder to finish him off. Wasn't able to get back the land from the grave or even Boseiju because my run dies immediately. But had two more fables in the hand plus solution for the Murktide. So I was in a pretty decent position. I just decided just to go for another fable at this point. Just looking for another white cards to kill this Murktide. I did find it. I exiled the top deck DM temporary lockdown, which I exiled to kill one of the Murktides, and I went for try to play around the spell pierce. So I played the persist, but I didn't play around the dispute. I was I discarded two cards, tried to dig for something, didn't find nothing I was looking for, and my opponent uh, was able to put me in a pretty bad situation here. It is pretty incredible. I was able to get back into this game. I was forced to jump the Murktide here, and I had a really good top deck here, persisting into Solitude, killing the Murktide, and I being able to trade with Ragawa next turn, just really good, and just a big 2-for-1. I also find the Leyline Binding to get rid of the last remaining threat on the field currently. I did have a series of mediocre top decks, so I now got into series of really good ones. I did find another Leyline Binding, so I was pretty safe from another threat. I decided to use it immediately on this subtlety because of the low life total. I didn't have much choice really, so I immediately go for it. And my opponent just passed the turn. We're in the stalemate mode, top decking. I had again a few bad top decks. I got into two lands in the row from the top of my deck. My opponent had better digging abilities with their channelers, considers, but my top decks are overall a bit stronger. I unfortunately find another Misty, so I'm forced to go to take the damage from channeler, go on 2 life. Was um, this was the luckiest game definitely in this league. My opponent didn't have another threat to finish me off here, so I was able to top deck my Enigmatic on time. They surveil one time, but I'm able to resolve my Enigmatic, then start sacrificing stuff. A lot of good targets here. First, I decide to go for the Endurance. Exile their graveyard, turn off their Unholy Heats, Murktides, whatever, and make their channeler 1-1. And then next turn I'm able to hardcast the agent and also sack the Leyline Binding, finding another agent, and my opponent concedes. Okay, game 3. Keeping okay hand, but with absolutely no response to turn 1 Ragavan. So I'm just forced to take a few hits. I just found the Rogren, play my fetch in case my opponent casts the Blood Moon. I can get out of that situation. Again, just taking the hit. My opponent decides just to play all creatures. I try to be aggressive as they're kind of low on time and everything, but they run directly into my temporary lockdown, exiling 4 of their creatures, and my opponent immediately conceding the game on the spot. Okay, that was real quick. Game 3 ended on turn 3. Okay, so uh, it's time for the match 3. Again, I think another Murktide opponent. And the last game was a loss in a trophy game. It was a loss against the Merfolk deck. Merfolk deck is among hardest matchups for this archetype, so it was pretty unlucky to get it in the last game. My opponent is able to double spell here, put counter on Shredder, and kill my Vren, unfortunately, but I had enough lands in my hand. They also play the Murktide here. I'm able to fetch my basic, play my Fable. Just, of course, trade with Ragavan if when opportunity presents. Uh, so unfortunately, I made a very bad decision. It didn't look as a bad decision in the beginning. I wanted to maybe hold the agent in the hand. Decided not to discard it and discard lands instead. I did get Vren, so it was fine discarding the lands, but I wasn't able to use the persist, or I didn't even have the mana to use the persist, and with second ability, then I correct my mistake. Uh, get back my agent, steal one of the shredders, so I'm able to survive the turn. I just let the shredder die, then survive on one life, then copy the agent, um, surveil here, find the leyline binding on the top, then kill the remaining threat with the leyline binding, holding another persist in hand. I try to on the end step, I make another agent, so I have a blocker for their turn while also stealing the Ledger Shredder. I still have to find the Omnat to be safe from the bolt. I did find it on the top, didn't have a red land to cast it this turn, but after I resolve it next turn, it's definitely pretty much a game over. They still have a chance to draw a bolt at this point. There's no point, no rush in attacking here, so I get 3 triggers from the Agent of Treachery. I draw 9 cards. It isn't very important, I just need the Omnat and the Fetch for next turn to finish the game. And that's it. That was game 1 in match 3 against my third Murktide opponent. Stabilized pretty weirdly on 1 life, stealing a lot of stuff from my opponents. And then keeping hand with Bitter Reunion and on Vren 6 for turn 2. This time I decided not to kill the channeler. I wanted to play the reunion first, try to find something else to discard, but I really didn't. So I was forced that way to let the channeler survive, which was probably a mistake. I probably should have fetched. I probably should have played the breeding pool, leave the fetch in the hand to be able to get the black mana. But I didn't want to lose any more life, so I just exiled this, resolved this solitude, exile the channeler, which was doing a lot of pressure to my life total, had the Leyland Binding in the hand, and again I cast the temporary lockdown, exiling two of their creatures, uh, being able to heal with the solitude, very good, and my opponent did find a solution for solitude, but didn't have any pressure on the field. They did find what number? I think it was one iteration, so it was the third iteration. Okay, they did find the third iteration. I didn't have mana to cast my Fury here. Unfortunately, it would be so perfect, but I had the two Leyland bindings to get rid of the threats, and I decided to just go for it because didn't want to let this channeler dig them any more cards. So I just remove both of the threads, have the fairy fury in hand, pretty decent, just need another red source to cast my fury. They didn't play any threats later, just a dash Agawan, so I was kind of forced to just put the fury on the field without killing anything, just as a blocker. Also find a bitter union for the next turn or the turn after if possible. My opponent just goes with Tavara on Fury to be able to dash Ragavan again. They didn't probably have any more threats. They didn't play my Solitude because they were expecting the Fury again. And they're able to just bolt Fury again and go with the Ragavan dash. Again, I definitely made a mistake somewhere by not fetching the black source, but I did find it in that tie in the hand, and I had a find of green fetch. I had to didn't find anything to stop this Ragavan, so I was forced to go on 2 life again in the bolt range. Then play the Enigmatic, find Omnat, heal myself to the 5 life, and have 2 blockers for the Ragavan, and my opponent concedes. Okay, so that was it. We will now watch another match 4 again against Murktide. So 4 Murktide matchups in a row, all wins, and most of them are pretty easy ones too. So deck is working pretty well against Murktide. We are able to fetch basics early. Just need like Triumph turn 1. You can go turn 2 and turn 3 into basic, which is just solving the Blood Moon problem. You're also able to just go with the Fables, the Furies, the Season Pyromancers, and with the Tribo Sages and the 4 Leyland Bindings post board, you have just so many options to kill it, and it's working very well against it. Okay, so I just decided to go with Omnat first. They maybe I should have gone for with Enigmatic at this situation to be able to wait until they tap out for like in this position, and then this was one of the very rare situations where Enigmatic was bad and didn't do much, but I very fast find a good enchantment to sacrifice here, and I'm able to immediately exile the Murktide and get it into my onto my control. So I have two blockers and four life, so I'm not too low for bolt and stuff. Out of the bolt range, pretty important. So just play my length. Didn't want to fetch because that would put me on 3 life. I had a persisting hand, so I didn't have. I kind of wanted my opponent to kill my agent. I decided to go on with Flawless Strand anyway, so I will be definitely in the boat range for that turn. And my opponent just goes Channeler into my Fable. I play another Leyline Binding, exiling my Fable, which means that I'm able to just. I wasn't able to fetch to get my black mana, but I was able to sacrifice the binding to get another agent. My Fable entered the field, steal their channeler, and just put myself into pretty good situation. So that only bolt um, from my opponent does something relevant in this position. I go for the persist for another agent, steal their token, have the lethal for the next turn, hold back with Solitude, draw 6 cards from the agent in the process, and after that my opponent decides to go for the Murktide bounce. I just wanted to Solitude my Murktide response to go out of the bolt range. If they had a bolt, they would already use it, so I definitely was sure they don't have it now. Also was able to gain some life, and that was it. Okay, that was game one. Game two. In all games, I think I used same sideboard. I move out to two walnuts. Sorry, two persist. One Fury, one Pyro, one Ren, one Mystery Forest, one Agent to get in the Endurances, Teferis, old Bossages are the cards most relevant in this matchup. Also, temporary lockdowns in. You could see already in the video and a few situations where temporary lockdown was just very brutal. It would also be very good in this situation, but I think it's better to in this position to go try to go with endurance and then try to resolve something which I expect to get to have it countered, and then try to do something, resolve something on your turn. Of course, my opponent counters the endurance, gets in with the damage, decide not to play my Fable. I didn't find the land still, and my opponent was getting closer to the delirium. I decided to go for the endurance first. I could have maybe risked go for the solitude first, try to see their counter that, and then try to go with the solitude. I decided to play Fable here, try to get more mana for next turn. I did find another land, which means I'm able to now just bounce one of the tokens and kill the channeler. Again, I survive on one life. So a lot of these games I survived on one life and stabilized from there. I was able to play the Omnat or something else, and I had the plains forest in data here, so I wasn't able to play Omnat from hand, but I was able to play Enigmatic and find Omnat in a different way. And that was it. After my opponent didn't find a solution for it, they just conceded. That was it. That was the last game. We won't watch the Murfolk matchup. It's just a miserable matchup for this deck. I also had the punt. Um, the same thing you could see in this last game. I fetched for in data forest and plains, and because of that, I wasn't able to cast the Omnat on turn 4 or 5, and that was direct loss for me again in game 1 against Merfolk, and game 2 they just had a double Lord for Island Walk. I had a bunch of jumpers, but I wasn't able to block the unblockable to deal with unblockable guys, so it was a fast win. Okay, so I'm really excited for this list. I think it's really good. I played a lot of leagues with it already, like 4 or 5 leagues. I have very good results with it. They were all positive leagues. All leagues that I played were either 3-2 or 4-1, and deck feels really strong. It feels like a very, very competitive version deck. It's also very fun to play. You have a very strong plan. All plan A, plan B, and plan C are all very strong. Persisting the agent treachery definitely often gets you where you want to be. Also, enigmatic into binding, finding the agent is also very often played that just puts your opponent into impossible situation, which is that they need to immediately kill you or you just outgrind them with your omnats, elementals, and enigmatic incarnation. It's also very capable of dealing with mirror matchups that don't play the agent, don't play the enigmatic. Uh, I think it's really good there. You can see that all my sideboard is focused on dealing with the aggro matchup. So, like additional uh, removal for the artifacts, Greyer Hate, removal for the lands, and some temporary lockdowns, the Teferis to bounce, and stuff like that. So, that's it. Hope you like the deck gameplay against my Murktide opponents. And that's it for this video. If you want to support the channel, hit the subscribe button and like button. And that's it for this time. See you in next video. Bye.